Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Maya Reesberg. For the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Rebekah Louisa Smith, the film festival strategist. Please enjoy Rebekah Louisa Smith. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Rebekah Louisa Smith, a film festival strategist. I wanted to make sure I said that correctly. Film festival strategist. It's a little bit of a tongue twister, but welcome to the podcast.
It is. I actually myself saying it. Sometimes I just say like, I'm a film festival consultant, which is easier to pronounce.
But I like the challenge, the film festival.
Yeah, it's a challenge. Yeah.
I love it. Nice. Well, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited you're here to chat about creativity today. But before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm a film festival consultant, and I have my own brand, and I built my brand back in 2010 when I launched my company, which is called the Film Festival Doctor. So what I do is I help people get their film seen in festivals around the world. So typically people will come to me who are filmmakers and obviously filmmakers because it's films. And they tend to have the same problems is that they've made the film. They don't know which kinds of festivals to send the film to, how to strategize, or they have been to festivals but haven't got the results they want at this moment in time. So I come in and get their strategy into shape and get it seen on the festival circuit in the right types of festivals for the film. So it is a very niche job. It's a very specific job, very complex, very strategic, but I love doing all of that, which brings out my creativity. I work with creative types who are typically seen as, the filmmakers and the art and all that, but also strategizing is an art. So, so this will be fun.
I'm so curious, how did you get into this very niche field?
Kind of, well, it was by accident. So how I got into it was a surprise. So actually I didn't intend when I grew up, I did not on my vision boards when I was younger, I didn't ever have an image of a festival strategist on there. Didn't really have one either. Still not many of us anyway, but I didn't have that vision on there. Basically the vision was like being a hairdresser and being that kind of world. But I did like the world of academia. And I remember when I was doing my master's degree, which I enjoyed, someone said, "Oh, you should do a PhD." And I said, "Well, all right." So it was kind of like, I kind of wanted to kind of do it, but I didn't see it as like my main passion. But someone said, "Oh, you're really good at this, like researching." And I was like, "Yeah, I do like researching and looking at patterns. So I do like it." But I thought, well, I'll give it a go. I then had to move from England to Wales. I was living in the UK at the time. I live in the States now. That's what I did. And I remember when I got to university, I was a bit like, I don't think this is my passion, but I'm doing it because I'm guided here. And then I got asked to co-produce and help co-organize a film festival, which is taking place at university called the Abattoir Horror Festival. And a friend of mine who I knew vaguely back when I was living in the UK in Worcester moved to Aberystwyth, and he was the manager of the theatre. And I was like, yes, I'd love to, because he said, I've been asked to put on this horror festival by the Film Council of Wales. This is new to me too, but if you want to help out. And I was like, yes, this will be a nice distraction. And that hobby was actually where I found my sole purpose and what I should be doing. And I just realized I love working in the world of film festivals. I love producing festivals. I love organizing all the guest accommodation, looking after guests. I love doing the programming. I loved it, and I came alive. And I realized that this is where I wanted to work in this field, in this specific area of the film industry. And I did finish my PhD. I have my PhD. I'm a doctor. But after that, literally, I handed in the PhD in March 2011. And then about 2 minutes after I handed it in, I got in my car and I drove to London. I moved to London to like start my company up because
Mhm.
I was like, I have to get this off the ground. I was like itching to get off the ground. I had this urge where I
Yeah.
was going back and forth to London to Wales, which is quite a journey. It's like 4 hours or more on the train. Not a
Mhm.
very reliable train at that time, but that was the journey. And I remember it was difficult because I was always going there. So I just really wanted to get the company off the ground. And
Mhm.
I was like, planting seeds when I was going to London networking, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, so then I just left, and then I went from London to Dallas.
Oh, all
So
right.
nice, like totally not where people normally say, oh, we go to Miami or like all those glamorous places, but
Mhm.
my home is here. So and now
Nice.
I'm established. So yeah, it was incredible how it just went from something I'd
Mhm.
never ever even thought, well, I didn't even know what this was until I went into the Water Film Festival. It's incredible.
Yeah. How neat. I mean, I love hearing these kind of origin stories of by
Yeah,
accident
yeah,
with big air quotes, accident.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'm so curious, being that you are in this creative experience of life and work, what does it mean to you to be creative?
mm. So obviously, as I mentioned previously, is people normally can associate in the film or creative types as those who, make the art and make the film and all that kind of thing, which is obviously very true. But there is so much creativity in my world, in my job and what I do. So when I create a festival strategy for a client, I always love to think outside the box. And
Mm.
what I love doing is identifying patterns and trends in festival programming so I can help my clients get their film seen on the circuit.
Mm.
So, for example, I just love analyzing patterns because that's what I did in my PhD. I was analyzing emotional response to film, looking at
Mm.
Tarantino's films. And
Mhm.
my job was to like analyze the trends and what the kind of common recurring themes were and the
Mhm.
common kind of patterns people were talking about Tarantino and if it was more men than women. So that PhD gave me a lot of like help to set my business up and to really
Yeah.
know how to go razor sharp when doing festival strategies and creation because
Mhm.
you're creating a strategy and it
Mhm.
takes time. But look at the patterns is brilliant. So I always look at the previous programming from the festival, look at
Mhm.
what won, look at what categories they have, and think, oh, that would match this film and that film.
Mhm.
And that festival will be great for this one because the filmmakers from this part of the world where that festival takes place. So I
Mhm.
think of all these things and these like angles and ways to come in. And it's so much fun and it's so creative. It's kind of like I compare it to like piece of art, like doing an art, doing a painting,
Mhm.
just in a different kind of like building blocks way. So I absolutely love it. I think it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
I mean,
Yeah.
hearing you talk about it, I'm like, I love it. Tell me
Yeah.
more. Sounds so interesting and fascinating
It
I
is.
love learning about jobs that I never knew existed.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No, absolutely. It is kind of like a job where you do need to kind of know those festivals because there's a lot of festivals. Then you
Right.
pick up patterns easily the more you do it.
Yeah.
So there are festivals which are not physical film festivals, meaning
Mhm.
that they are um online and they're not going to do anything for the filmmaker and they're not the best. But then you look at those and you think, I know what that is. And you're like, nope, I'm going to stay away from that. Well, this is genuine. Oh, there's this picture here and this shows that. And oh, they have a program about Aboriginal films. Or
Mhm.
look at Hawaii's festival that seems to do a lot of Indigenous programs. So it's just fun to notice them and to make a note and put them like in like subcategories and get
Yeah.
really organized. Actually get you more creative when you're working for a client to get results.
Absolutely. So, being that you are very attuned to recognizing patterns and creating strategies, how does that show up in the rest of your life? Do you find yourself noticing patterns and strategies in your everyday life as well?
I got to do, yes. I always do notice the patterns in like people's like personality traits, how people work,
Yeah.
what their characteristic tendencies are. So yeah, so I do pick it up. I think it's a natural pattern analyzer. I think it
Yeah.
comes naturally. And also like patterns with like certain festivals and how they respond and how they
Mhm.
organize and what to expect. So it does have its uses, even though it's slightly crazy. Um, but no, but it can't. There's method in the madness, I say.
I believe it. Yeah.
So that you don't notice them, kind of thing. Also, what's fun about them is with patterns, sometimes as you say, it's quite helpful because it's like, for example, when I was waiting for a letter to come from the homestead exemption people for my house.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew they would take a while. So I just like keep on top of things with them. They're like, oh yeah, we haven't got round to it at the minute. I'm like, well, I thought so, because I just knew the pattern. And previously it took you like 4 months. I thought it was going to maybe take a month, but no, it's going to take probably the same.
Yeah.
So just things like that, is it just help in that respect, like can calm
Mhm.
anxiety a bit.
Yeah.
But just sometimes they really help. So you just know, how to prepare and how to work with a certain person.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that makes so much sense. And I imagine with working in this industry and with very creative people that you come up against challenges, or film festivals do things all of a sudden differently. And how are you
Yeah.
navigating that? And so what are some of the more creative challenges that you faced? And then how do you personally navigate them?
So for me, is one thing I have to do to like reboot the creativity button in my head and my mind is to always definitely get away from my desk and get out the house and go for like a nice long walk where I do look at my phone. I have to like recharge and reboot. I think that's really important. It's like
Yeah.
when you go to the gym, people go to the gym like every day. Sometimes you need the muscles to rest and reboot, and that's really important. That's
Mhm.
probably what most people should do. But it's the same like with creativity, so I have to have that break in the day where I just like go for the walk, get some inspiration. And that
Mhm.
helps me solve a problem because I'm not thinking about it, I'm not getting tired.
Right.
Because I find that I'm at my peak of creativity is in the mornings.
Mm.
Actually, I get all these ideas and more patterns arise that I notice.
Yeah.
And I look at on Instagram, it's like, oh, that film's in there, and that film's got in there, and this one's like, oh, that's interesting. They're
Mhm.
obviously being open to these kinds of filmmakers now and this kind of trends of filmmaking.
Yeah.
So and I get that all in the mornings, but I do need to like it's like a car, put more gas in it and to
Mhm.
refuel. So I have to go out and do that. Also what I do is that helps me kind of find a solution or just gets me more inspired to do certain things. But also what I do is I place a cosmic order. So
Mm.
that means
Yeah.
so
Tell
what
me
a cosmic,
more.
yes, it's a nice twist. So a cosmic order is where you literally place an order with the universe of what you want. So like go to a
Mm.
restaurant, like I want, fries. You have to be
Mhm.
very specific when you place the order. So the good one is the car parking order. So you can say, what I'd really love and appreciate is to get a parking space upon my arrival to Uptown Dallas outside Violet Crown Theatre. And you said
Mm.
that for the good of all concerned at the end, saying that's what you've placed the order. So being specific is important. It's like when you go to a restaurant, you need to say, I would like fries with cheesy topping and garlic bread on the side, that kind of thing. You're very
Yeah.
specific. So I say the same thing with placing orders for my clients, like wanting a certain festival or
Mm.
just some kind of news for a client to come in and just this, or help you find a solution. And
Mhm.
I do that before I go out. So I've placed it and it's done. And
Okay.
then when I come back, it's either arrived or I've got the inspiration or I've just been like told what it is.
Yeah.
So that helps a lot. Again, method in the madness, but it helps because it's just sometimes when you have that great creative block, that
Mhm.
kind of can help. Ask meditation. But for
Yeah.
me, I find meditation is in like my walking meditation works for me
Absolutely.
to find solutions and just to get away from any kind of pressure.
Nice. I mean, those are great tips to get outside, get away, take a break, rest,
Yeah.
reset, recharge, and send your cosmic orders to the universe.
Yes.
I think that's fantastic. I
Yeah.
love it. Yeah, that's good. Wonderful. So I mean, working in a creative field and having so much opportunity to really flex those creative muscles as a kid or like in early life, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
I think there's always been creative blood in my body because my dad is a TV engineer and
Mm.
he's like also has his own business and still has it now. And does his work and he always would work very hard, but also he'd be like in the creative field in television, not in
Mhm.
film, in television.
Yeah.
And we always used to watch films together when I was like really young. So I always had some kind of like definitely inspiration into like the film world at least or media world when I was younger. And
Mhm.
then also when I was younger, I really had this like um urge to keep doing creative writing.
Mm.
At school, we had in the UK, because I was school in the UK and I was born and raised in the UK, we had English classes, you know, so
Mhm.
it was stuff like Romeo and Juliet and Across the Barricades, all this
Mhm.
kind of stuff I quite liked. And some people didn't like it at all, but I thought this is my thing, you know, all the creativity in the writing and watching it flow. And I wanted to keep writing. So
Mm.
I did a course, creative writing, and loved it. I created my own worlds and stories, and that translated into real life.
Mhm.
So I can write a lot of worlds and stories. And I remember when I was at school, I was always creative then. So I got a slice of bread, and then I, you know, put out the middle part of the bread, squished it into a ball, and then I got the crusts and made it into a person. And people were like, "Oh, you know, kind of, this is kind of weird." But I'm like, "Well, it's different."
Yeah, it's
Um,
playing. Yeah.
it's just, and also we had like there was an apple, and then we put like this smiley sad face and sad face on these two apple sides just with them using some I think it was salsa, just because just because it was like just different stuff, you know, and just
Yeah.
find different ways to be creative. And no one else really do that, but I was always like outside the box thinking, even from a young age. I just loved, you know, when I was at school, as I mentioned, I just loved going to English and theatre studies. I hated maths, I hated chemistry, I hated physics, hated all that stuff. It was just dreading going to school because it was just so dull. I couldn't
Mhm.
get into it at all. It wasn't my thing. But those two things, like
Yeah.
I did so much work, and then all the writing I did was like really, you know, like quite out what's the word, like off the beaten track and different. But I
Yeah.
loved it because it got the highest scores in it. And someone did say that, you know, you're going to be in the world of writing. And
Mhm.
I was like, that's true. And then I didn't go down the path of doing screenplays or treatments, but I have written a book, several books actually,
Mhm.
which I like the best because that's nice to write and write reviews as well. So I've done like film journalism, but
Yeah.
not so much academic kind of work.
Mhm. Nice. And so having that kind of creative expression as a kid, how have you kept that alive as an adult? Was that, it sounds like it was cultivated with your father and, but
Yeah.
keeping it alive for yourself today, how do you do that?
So I always love I think it's the pattern thing again, but when I like get my newsletter from Goop and Wellco,
Mhm.
obviously run by two female entrepreneurs, I just love looking at how they organize newsletters and how they create it and what the content is. I am such a big fan of content creation. I think I was probably when I was younger, I always would like make these little stories and like, you know, really good content, I suppose you could say. And you can actually use that now when for your own branding, for Instagram and for Facebook and
Mhm.
LinkedIn, all that kind of thing. Probably not so much Pinterest, but I still do that now. So when I like literally when I'm going to an event, to a film festival, for example, I just love creating the content. As in
Mm.
like pictures on the red carpet, but also like, you know, doing the Q&A and put on your story and, you know, maybe some little video or something. I love doing all that kind of thing. And I also kind of I don't have to do it because I don't have to do it, but I want to do
Mhm.
it for my Instagram page and for my
Yeah.
brand. Because I think it's just so great, you know, putting it all together and showing what people are doing, positivity and a good
Mhm.
collaboration and like so it's a community or collective, people say. And I quite
Yeah.
like doing that in my little niche. So it's quite fun.
Yeah.
So I kind of use that like it's just probably unconscious. I think I might call it unconscious creativity because I'm
Mhm.
like not aware that I'm being creative when I'm just trying to get, you know, footage for certain platforms. But I love doing
Sure.
it, and it's so much fun to create it because it's your own way, you know, your own camera angles and your own choice
Right.
of content. So
Yeah. That makes so much sense to fuel your own creativity, whether it's with intention or just because you're at the film festival and this is kind of the process that you use in
yeah,
capturing images or information. But yeah, to recognize, to reflect on it. It sounds like it is really creative and it does fuel you and charge you in a way to keep wanting to do more of it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it does because it's fun doing it. Sometimes people
Yeah.
are like, oh, I've got to get the footage and, you know, show up and all that. And yes, you kind of that part of it is part of the job of a film festival. You have to do that, but show you were there and for the coverage, which I love doing. But it's also nice because when you make it fun, you get more good material and it just
Hmm.
brings out more creativity in you because you're not just doing it like point and shoot. It's actually like,
Right.
let's do this angle, and no, let's capture that, and let's do this, and then these, and our camera angles, and then the way that what you and what you create, and also how you put it all together into a story is
Yeah.
also really fascinating, because that brings out more creative kind of joys.
Yeah. I mean, you strike me as someone who is inspired by so many things, and
Yeah.
how you look at stuff. I'm so curious, in your life today, who or what is inspiring you?
So I love female businesswomen, entrepreneurs. I just love talking to the women about running a business and
Mhm.
challenges, and how they react and what they do, and that kind of sort of community. I love doing that kind of thing. And I think in terms of women that do inspire me, in terms of businesswomen, I do love a woman called Caprice. So
Mm.
she's known in the UK, and I followed
Mhm.
her career since the beginning, of how she started off as, being like the pastry kind of girl, I think it was, or some kind of like
Mhm.
just a celebrity that was known for turning up to red carpets with with men. But then she then became, like, obviously she became a mom and has a partner, but also is that she launched her own brand of underwear, and then she
Mhm.
went into homeware. But
Mm.
following her journey, I was like, you're like a little mini me, in terms of how she gets inspired and is always on and has those ideas flow for a business and to change her brand, and what she didn't, and what she missed in the beginning. So I
Mhm.
really find that fascinating. I absolutely love that in her. And she really is open about it in her books.
Mhm.
Actually, I learned from her, and it helps my business. The
Oh.
same with Gwyneth Paltrow. So
Mhm.
she's quite interesting in terms of her brand Goop. I love
Mhm.
how she's gone from the actress and finished that to doing Goop, and how it's kind of like changing culture.
Mhm.
That's why I love looking at her content and how different it is, and how to apply that and the structure in her patterns to her own brand.
Mhm.
So I find her quite interesting. And Jennifer Aniston as well. Lola V is interesting, her brand, because obviously it's hair, which she's known for, but it's kind of an interesting product, what
Mhm.
she's put on the market, and
Mhm.
how she very cleverly, creates her kind of iconic brand. So I
Mhm.
like the people around her, but she's also interesting in how she is very, you know, her, which is quite nice. She's not really too much of putting guards up, but she's
Yeah.
certainly got some warmth to her. So I find that just inspirational, from those three especially. But I just
Mhm.
love business, talking about business for business women. I find that female entrepreneurs really, really inspirational.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I can hear it when you talk about them
Yeah.
and what it is. And it sounds like, I don't know how big your own entrepreneurial endeavor is with employees, etc. But in terms of like community and the people that you surround yourself with, how does your community impact or influence your creativity?
So I am around a lot of filmmakers, like, all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and I do need to kind of just sometimes to put like a bit of a creative boundary up,
Mm.
because some of them can be very, very attached to their product, and they find it hard to remove that cord, and it can be
Mhm.
hard. So you have to kind of take that space and get away from it,
Mhm.
because energy can be not toxic, but just very, like, just need looking after, and very sensitive,
Yeah.
because it's a very kind of a kind of pressure kind of product, and a lot of emotions around it, which all can vary between up and down, fear, but also enjoyment, and then, like possession and all these kind of
Mhm.
things, like hitting love. So people around me tend to be, when I take a break from that kind of energy, I've got obviously a lot of friends of mine are in the industry, but they are very level-headed. So I
Mm.
have two people that are in my world that are very close to, and they're very good at what they do. But also we just take a break and not talk about industry, and just talk about us, to not
Mhm.
lose sight. Obviously, it's such like an intense creative process, what we do.
Yeah.
It's important not to lose sight of who you are and what you're
Mm.
known for and what you do, but also just to take care of you, and just Rebekah, and, like, you come first before the brand. You have to, like, to that detachment from the brand to
Mhm.
Rebekah is quite important. Otherwise, you can get lost in the brand. So it's
Mm.
important just to have the creative boundaries and just get to know you and go inside of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that kind of leads me into my next question. Like, there are several people in the world, several, as in like a few, millions of people in the world who
Millions.
don't believe that they're creative. And how would you encourage others to find creativity in their life?
That's a really good point, because everybody has, as you just said, has creativity within them. Everyone's got a creative side. Those that work in the corporate world, they're like, oh, we're just like, corporate job and not creative person. You are inside you. So it's kind of like, the way I look at it is, what's your kind of what are your key hobbies? And which one of those hobbies do you love the most and could maybe do for a whole living and just do 24/7? Because that is what you should be doing. And that is going to be creative. It's not going to be pushing around papers in an office or fresh air. It's going to be doing something more that you want to do. So here's a good example. A friend of mine, he was doing a very well-paid corporate job that was just soul destroying, like horrific, to the point where on a Sunday night he'd dread about Monday, didn't want to go in the office, hated it. The people around him were not on his wavelength, not quite on the same like vibe, or there was kind of like off the wall people, just very, very formal, very, I suppose the word's very corporate, because that kind of institution when you're working for a massive like insurance company. And then I said to him, I said, look, you haven't got to keep doing this for the rest of your life. I mean, you're like me, so you like going to the theatre and the arts and film festivals. We met at a film festival. So what is it that you really like to do as a hobby that you could see as a job? He went, well, I do love making candles. I do it as a hobby to try and get away from the corporate nonsense going on. He said, I do love making the candles, have my own, like put them in scents together, have the own kind of like stuff. I can make it. And I was like, wow. So, well, how about you just every weekend make your candles and then start selling them, put a little shop, and then just keep doing more of that, and then I think that will help with an outlet. So he did, and then what he eventually did was he made so many, and then he got this following, like a cult following on Instagram Shop, and then also on Etsy, and then he doesn't know it's a full-time job. And that's because he let creativity in, because he said it was not going to be there, and he had to just, he's in the words like, I have to be in this job rest of my life. Well, obviously doesn't need to do that. So I think it's important to tap into doing something like, what is it that you love? And then can you monetize from that? But also, how often can you do this? If you can do it 24/7 and just time passes, then that's something you need to dive into. And you'll find that when you do that, is that you'll get more creative in your job. But I know it's been limited in the corporate world, but you can get more creative in your job and really enjoy those parts of your job, and then excel and then not feel too down. So let creativity heal you.
I love that reminder. And I love the tips to really think about what are the hobbies that bring you joy, that fuel your soul, that allow you to have an authentic expression of who you are, and follow that line and see what happens. So thank you for that. And this has been such a fantastic conversation. I just have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
It brings me so much joy and excitement. Like when I get this aha moment, or I just start doing my creative things and my strategies, I feel in my happy place. And I feel like I've achieved something that's really meaningful and it's going to make an impact on the festival circuit, but also with the client's film. Just like, oh, we've got this great solution here, and it gets really happy. So I come alive, and I just focus on it 110%, so that I'm not distracted. So I love it, because when you get really dive in deep, and you don't have anything distracting you, or you don't start doing something the other, you can really focus, and all the good stuff comes out.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing that and everything that you've given to the listeners today. If people want to learn more about the work that you do, things that you have, your social media, how could they go about finding you?
Yep. So my website is the filmfestivaldoctor.com. And my Instagram is at Rebekah Film Doctor. So that's spelled RebekahFilmDr. You can drop me an Instagram follow and message, and I'll happily respond back and connect. I'd love to connect with more people in the creative world and business owners. Entrepreneurs would be lovely to share our creative journeys together.
Perfect. Well, I'll put that all of those links in show notes so people have easy access. And thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Me too. So much fun. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.